The great crystal ships drifted through space like dying stars. Each one was as large as a human city, their surfaces covered in patterns that looked like frozen lightning. Inside these massive vessels, the last million members of the HFY race waited to die. Commander Zekai stood on the bridge of the flagship, his crystalline body catching the dim light from the failing power cores. His people had once ruled dozens of star systems. Now they had nothing but 12 old ships and the bitter taste of exile. The trial had lasted 3 days. Representatives from 100 worlds had gathered to decide the fate of the HFY. The charges were simple. They had destroyed stars. Entire solar systems had collapsed because of their actions. Billions had died. Zekai remembered every word of the final judgment. The HFY are guilty of stellar murder. Their punishment is exile. No world in known space may give them shelter. No station may refuel their ships. They are cast out forever. The truth was more complex, but the galaxy did not want to hear it. The HFY had tried to save those dying stars, not destroy them. Their technology could remove the dangerous matter that made stars unstable. But when the stars collapsed anyway, everyone blamed them. Now the 12 ships moved toward the edge of the galaxy. Their food would run out in 6 months. Their power would fail in 8. The HFY had accepted this fate. It was better to die with dignity than to beg worlds that would never listen. 200 light-years away, Dr. Lisa Carter sat in her small laboratory aboard the human research ship New Horizons. She was studying ancient radio signals when her equipment picked up something strange. The signals were very faint and broken, but they followed patterns she had never seen before. Lisa worked through the night, trying to piece together the fragments. The mathematics were incredible, far beyond anything humans had developed. But there was something else in the signals, something that sounded almost like a cry for help. Captain Jake Murphy found her asleep at her desk the next morning, surrounded by printouts and empty coffee cups. Jake was a good man, the kind who cared more about doing what was right than following every rule. "Lisa, you need to see this," she said as soon as he woke her up. She showed him the signals she had captured. "These aren't random, Jake. Someone is out there, and they're in trouble." Jake studied the data. The New Horizons was supposed to be mapping empty space, looking for new trade routes. They were not supposed to investigate alien distress calls. Earth had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. The rules were clear. Don't get involved in things you don't understand. But Jake had seen the mathematics in Lisa's printouts. Whatever species had sent these signals was incredibly advanced. If they were dying out here, maybe humans could learn something by helping them. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. 3 days at maximum speed," Lisa replied. Jake made his decision. "Plot a course. We're going to take a look." The crew of the New Horizons was excited. They were scientists and explorers, not politicians. The chance to make first contact with an unknown species was everything they had dreamed of. Chief Engineer Ben Clark spent those 3 days preparing. If they found aliens in distress, they would need medical supplies, food, and repair equipment. Ben had served in Earth's colonial fleet before joining the research division. He knew how to improvise when lives were at stake. Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's linguist, worked on the signal patterns. She had learned 6 alien languages since humanity joined the galactic community. This one was different, older somehow, with structures that suggested a very ancient culture. When they finally saw the HFY fleet, the humans fell silent. The 12 crystal ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Each one was covered in scars that told stories of battles fought across thousands of years. Some sections were dark where the power had failed. "My God," whispered Lisa. "How old are these ships?" The answer came from Amy, who had been analyzing the hull markings. "If I'm reading this correctly, some of these vessels are over 50,000 years old." Jake opened a communication channel. The response came immediately, but it was not what any of them expected. The alien voice was tired, almost resigned. Human vessel, you should not be here. We are the Kethfer. We have been judged by the galactic community and found guilty of crimes against life itself. Associating with us will bring you only suffering. Please, leave us to die in peace. Lisa looked at Jake. In all their years of studying alien cultures, they had never encountered anything like this. Here was a species so advanced they could build ships that lasted 50 millennia, yet they were dying alone in the void. This is Captain Jake Murphy of the human vessel New Horizons, Jake replied. We received your distress signals. We're here to help. There was a long silence. Then the alien voice returned, filled with something that might have been wonder. Help. You would help us. Do you not know what we have done? We know what others say you have done, Jake said. But we'd rather hear your side of the story. On the Kethfer flagship, Commander Zekai stared at the small human ship. In his long life, he had dealt with hundreds of species. Most were predictable. They wanted something: technology, resources, territory. These humans were asking for nothing except the chance to help. It made no sense. The humans were new to galactic politics. Helping the Kethfer would make enemies of powerful worlds. Yet here they were, a tiny research vessel offering aid to an entire exiled civilization. Zekai made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Human captain, if you truly wish to hear our story, you may dock with our ship. But know this: once you board our vessel, the galaxy will consider you as guilty as we are. Jake smiled. Then we'd better make sure we understand what we're getting into. Prepare to dock. We're coming aboard. As the New Horizons moved toward the massive crystal ship, none of them could imagine how this moment would reshape the galaxy. They only knew that somewhere in the cold darkness of space, people were dying, and that was enough reason to try to help. The docking bay of the Kethfer ship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. Commander Zekai waited for them with a small group of his people. The Kethfer were tall and graceful, their bodies made of what looked like living gemstone. Light moved through them in complex patterns that Lisa realized was probably their way of showing emotion. Welcome aboard the Salvation's End, Zekai said. His voice came from a translator device, but the humans could hear the sadness behind the mechanical words. I am Commander Zekai. I lead what remains of my people. Jake stepped forward. I'm Captain Murphy. This is Dr. Carter, our science officer, and Dr. Foster, our language specialist. Chief Clark here is our engineer. Zekai's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. You brought an engineer. Most species send soldiers when they first meet us. We're not here to fight, Ben said simply. We're here to help. Your ships look like they could use some repairs. The crystal patterns in Zekai's body brightened. Help, he repeated, as if the word was foreign to him. It has been very long since anyone offered us help. As they walked through the ship, the humans saw the truth of the Kethfer situation. Entire sections were without power. The air recycling systems were failing. Children pressed their faces against crystal windows, staring at the human visitors with large, curious eyes. How many of you are there? Lisa asked. 1,047,000, Zekai replied. We were once 3 billion. These 12 ships carry all that remains of the Kethfer civilization. Amy had been studying the crystal patterns on the walls. Commander, these markings, they're a historical record, aren't they? The story of your people. Zekai stopped walking. You can read our chronicles. Not completely, Amy admitted, but I can see the patterns. There are records here going back. How far back do they go? 73,000 years, Zekai said quietly. We were the first species to leave our home world. We helped others learn to travel between the stars. We taught them to work together instead of fighting. For 50,000 years, We were the guardians of galactic peace. Lisa felt a chill. What happened? They reached a vast chamber filled with what looked like a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars glowed in the crystal matrix, but many of them were dark. We grew old, Zekai explained. Our energy needs increased. We developed technology to harvest power directly from stars. But we were careful. We only took energy from stars that were already dying, stars that would have exploded and destroyed everything around them. He touched the crystal map, and several stars began to pulse with dangerous red light. These were the first ones we tried to save. We removed the unstable matter that was building up in their cores. We thought we had succeeded. The red stars in the map suddenly went dark. They collapsed anyway, Zekai continued. We had delayed the inevitable, but we could not stop it. The explosions still happened. Solar systems still died, and the younger races blamed us. Ben studied the technical readings displayed in the crystal matrix. You were trying to prevent supernovas, yes. But when you are working with the hearts of stars, even small mistakes have huge consequences. 3 systems died despite our efforts. The galactic community decided we were too dangerous to exist. Dr. Carter looked at the star map with new understanding. They didn't want to believe that some things can't be stopped. It was easier to blame you than accept that the universe is sometimes cruel. The trial was a formality, Zekai said bitterly. They had already decided our fate. Exile, with no right to land on any world. No species may trade with us, refuel our ships, or give us supplies. We are to die forgotten in the void between stars. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. That's not justice. That's murder. Perhaps, Zekai replied, but it is done. We have accepted our fate. Well, we haven't, Ben said firmly. He pulled out his equipment scanner and began examining the ship's power systems. These energy conduits are fascinating. If we could adapt our fusion technology to work with your crystal matrices, ... You cannot help us, Zekai interrupted. The galactic community will punish you for even talking to us. Your species is young. You cannot afford to make enemies of the great powers. Lisa laughed. Commander, you don't know humans very well. We have a bad habit of helping people, even when it gets us in trouble. Over the next several hours, the human team worked throughout the Kethver ship. Ben and his engineering team began repairs on the failing life support systems. Amy worked with Kethver scholars to better understand their language and culture. Lisa studied their advanced technology, amazed by sciences that were ancient when human civilization was just beginning. The Kethver watched in wonder as the humans worked. They had expected nothing from this meeting, except perhaps a quick death. Instead, these strange aliens were giving freely of their time and knowledge. A young Kethver named Zila approached Lisa while she was working on a broken medical scanner. The child's crystal body glowed with patterns that Amy translated as curiosity mixed with hope. Human lady, Zila said in broken English, why do you help us? Everyone else says we are bad. Lisa knelt down to the child's eye level. Because everyone else is wrong, sweetie. You're not bad. You're just different. But we broke the stars, Zila said sadly. No, honey. You tried to fix the stars. Sometimes when you try to help, things still go wrong. That doesn't make you bad, that makes you brave. Zila's crystal body brightened with what could only be joy. She ran back to her family, chattering excitedly in her own language about the kind humans. But their work was interrupted by an urgent message from the New Horizons. Communications Officer Tony Rodriguez's voice crackled through Jake's radio. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you immediately. Jake sighed. He had known this moment would come. The galactic community monitored all communications. Earth's government would have been informed about their contact with the Kethver within hours. I have to take this call, Jake told Zekai. But we're not done here. We're going to help you. no matter what anyone else says. Zekai watched the humans prepare to leave. In all his long life, he had never met a species like this. They were young and weak compared to the great galactic powers. But they had something that older civilizations seemed to have lost, the courage to do what was right, even when it was dangerous. As the New Horizons undocked from the Salvation's End, Zek sent a message to all the other Kethfer ships. My people, something unexpected has happened. We may have found allies in the most unlikely place. The human captain promised they would return. I believe him. For the first time in months, hope began to spread through the exile fleet. They were still dying, still cast out by the galaxy. But they were no longer alone. And sometimes, not being alone was enough to change everything. The emergency meeting in the White House was tense. President Jon Stewart sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his top advisors. Admiral Patricia Hayes had flown in from the Galactic Embassy station, her face grim with worry. The situation is clear, Mr. President, Admiral Hayes said. The Galactic Concord has made their position known. Any species that helps the Kethfer will face immediate sanctions. Trade will be cut off. Our colonies outside the solar system will be isolated. Some members are even talking about military action. Secretary of State Karen White leaned forward. Sir, we've been part of the galactic community for only 5 years. We can't afford to make enemies this early. Our economy depends on alien technology and trade routes. President Stewart looked tired. The weight of leading humanity's first steps into galactic politics was enormous. One wrong choice could doom Earth's future among the stars. What do we know about these Kethfer? He asked. Dr. Robert Chen, Earth's chief xenologist, opened his files. According to Captain Murphy's reports, they're an ancient civilization. They claim to have been trying to prevent stellar collapse, not cause it. Their technology is incredibly advanced. Claims, Admiral Hayes said sharply. The galactic trial found them guilty of destroying 3 solar systems. Billions died. But what if they're telling the truth? President Stewart asked quietly. The room fell silent. Finally, Defense Secretary Mark Johnson spoke up. Sir, even if they are innocent, we can't save them. 12 massive ships with 1 million aliens. Where would we put them? How would we feed them? And the diplomatic cost. President Stewart turned to the video screen where Captain Murphy was waiting. Jake, you've met these people face to face. What's your honest assessment? Jake's image flickered as the signal crossed space. Mr. President, I've been in the military for 20 years. I've dealt with hostile aliens, seen real monsters. The Kethfer aren't monsters. They're refugees. And if we turn our backs on them, we become the monsters. 3 days later, President Stewart made a decision that shocked the world. Standing before the United Nations, he announced that Earth would offer full sanctuary to the Kethfer fleet. We are a young species, he said to the assembled delegates. We make mistakes. But one thing humanity has always believed is that everyone deserves a second chance. The Kethfer will find shelter in our solar system. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Half the UN delegates walked out in protest. Stock markets crashed as investors feared economic disaster. Protests erupted in major cities around the world, but other voices supported the decision. Dr. Maya Patel, a physicist at MIT, went on television to defend the president's choice. The Kethfer technology could advance human science by centuries. More importantly, it's the right thing to do. Religious leaders from many faiths spoke out in favor of giving sanctuary to the exiles. Every holy book teaches us to welcome the stranger, said Reverend David Kim during his Sunday sermon. The strongest support came from an unexpected source: children. 12-year-old Megan Phillips started a video blog called Save the Space Refugees. Her simple message went viral. If aliens came to Earth and we were in trouble, wouldn't we want someone to help us? Meanwhile, the Kethfer fleet had begun the long journey to the solar system. Captain Murphy and the New Horizons escorted them, along with a growing number of human ships carrying supplies and medical aid. Dr. Kevin Ross, Earth's new head of alien relations, worked around the clock to prepare for the Kethfer arrival. The plan was to establish orbital habitats around Jupiter, using the gas giant's energy fields to power Kethfer crystal technology. But not everyone on Earth was happy about the arrangement. Senator Paul Grant led the opposition movement, holding rallies across the country. "These aliens are criminals," he shouted to cheering crowds. "They'll bring nothing but destruction to our world." The protests turned violent when a child named Zila participated in a student exchange program via video link. She was trying to learn English by talking to children at an elementary school in Ohio. When anti-alien protesters surrounded the building, the images of scared human children and one frightened alien child went around the world in minutes. But instead of hurting the pro-Kethfer movement, it strengthened it. Megan Phillips organized counter-protests, and millions of people showed up wearing crystal-shaped pins to show their support. The galactic community's response was swift and harsh. Trade agreements were canceled. Human colonies on frontier worlds found themselves cut off from supply lines. The Centauri colony declared independence from Earth rather than face starvation. Admiral Hayes brought the bad news to President Stewart personally. "Sir, we're looking at economic collapse, food shortages. Some of our own people are talking about revolution." "How long can we hold out?" the president asked. 6 months, maybe less," Hayes replied. But President Stewart had made his choice. When reporters asked if he regretted his decision, he was firm. America was built by people who were cast out by other nations. "We've always believed that's what makes us stronger, not weaker." The first Kethfer ships reached Jupiter orbit on a Tuesday morning. The media covered every moment as the massive crystal vessels took their positions around the gas giant. Human construction crews worked alongside Kethfer engineers to build the orbital platforms that would become their new home. Commander Zekai stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching Jupiter's swirling clouds below. He had never imagined he would see his people settled again. The humans had risked everything to give them this chance. "The platforms will be ready in 3 months, reported Chief Engineer Ben Clark over the radio. "Your people will have homes again." "We can never repay this debt," Zekai replied. "You don't owe us anything," Ben said. "That's not how friendship works." Friendship, Zekai thought about that word as he watched human and Kethfer children playing together in the ship's recreation areas. His people had known allies and enemies, trade partners and rivals, but friends, that was something new. The first major test came when little Zila accidentally interfaced with a human quantum computer during a school lesson. Her crystal body naturally connected to electronic systems, but human computers weren't designed for that kind of contact. For 6 hours, communications satellites around Earth went dead. The panic was immediate. Senator Grant and his followers claimed it was an attack. "This proves the aliens are infiltrating our systems," he declared on every news channel. But Megan Phillips had a different response. She organized a live video call with Ziola, speaking directly to the frightened Kethfer child in front of millions of viewers. "It's okay," Megan said gently. "Accidents happen. My little brother broke my computer last week, and he's human. We still love him." Zila's crystal body flickered with grateful light. Sorry, human friend, Megan. I not mean to break sky voices. I know you didn't mean it," Megan replied. "That's what friends do. We forgive each other." The video became the most watched broadcast in human history. Support for the Kethfer grew even stronger, especially among young people who saw past the fear and politics to the simple truth. These were people who needed help. As the first Kethfer families moved into their new orbital homes around Jupiter, something remarkable happened. Human and alien children began learning together, playing together, growing up as friends across species lines. Scientists from both races worked side by side, advancing knowledge faster than either could alone. But the real test was still coming. The Galactic Concord had made their position clear. Humanity would be punished for harboring the exiles, and punishment, in galactic politics, often came at the end of a laser cannon. President Stewart knew that helping the HFY might have doomed humanity to the same fate of exile. But as he watched the first joint human-alien graduation ceremony, broadcast from Jupiter orbit, he felt no regret. Sometimes, he told his advisors, doing the right thing is more important than doing the safe thing. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity meant every word. The warning came from an unlikely source. Captain Elena Vasquez was commanding a human cargo ship near the edge of the solar system when her sensors picked up something that made her blood run cold. Hundreds of ships were moving toward Earth, and they weren't coming to talk. "This is Captain Vasquez to Earth Command," she broadcast on emergency channels. "I'm detecting a massive fleet approaching from galactic north. Configuration matches hegemony of Shrek warships. Estimated time to Earth orbit, 6 days." At Jupiter Station, Admiral Rex Kane received a message with grim acceptance. He had been expecting this moment since the day Earth offered sanctuary to the HFY. The galaxy's most powerful military alliance wasn't going to let humanity's defiance go unpunished. "How many ships?" Kane asked his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Sarah Brooks. 200 confirmed, sir. All heavy cruisers and battleships. They're carrying reality-warping weapons and quantum disruptors. Our conventional defenses won't be effective against them." Kane looked out at the crystal cities floating around Jupiter, where human and HFY families lived together in peace. Children were playing in the observation domes, laughing as they watched Jupiter's storms swirl below them. In 6 days, all of that might be destroyed. "What do we have to work with?" Kane asked. 30 human warships, mostly destroyers and frigates, Brooks replied. "Plus whatever the HFY can contribute." Kane opened a communication channel to Commander Zekai. The crystalline leader appeared on screen, his body pulsing with patterns that Kane had learned to recognize as determination. "Commander, we need to know what military resources your people can provide," Kane said directly. Zekai was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, my people have been pacifists for 2,000 years. We have not built weapons of war in all that time." Kane's heart sank. They were facing impossible odds with only their small fleet. "However," Zekai continued, "we have not forgotten how to build them, and our knowledge goes back to the early days of the galaxy, when wars were fought with sciences that modern civilizations have forgotten." 3 days later, the human and HFY engineers were working around the clock in the construction bays around Jupiter. The sight would have amazed anyone who understood the technology being created there. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Unity, the first hybrid warship ever built. Her ship looked like nothing the galaxy had seen before. The hull was made of HFY living crystal, fused with human titanium steel. Energy conduits ran through the walls like glowing veins. "Power systems online," reported engineer Tony Rodriguez. From the engine room, "The crystal matrix is stable. We're reading energy levels that shouldn't be possible." The Unity wasn't alone. In just 3 days, human and HFY workers had created a fleet of hybrid vessels unlike anything in galactic history. They had fighters that could phase through solid matter, cruisers that could channel stellar energy into devastating weapons, and shields that turned quantum attacks back on their attackers. But the real surprise was in the tactics. Humans were excellent at improvisation and unconventional thinking. The HFY knew every standard military doctrine used by galactic powers, having helped develop many of them thousands of years ago. When the Shrek fleet arrived in the outer solar system, Admiral Kretok expected an easy victory. The Shrek had conquered dozens of worlds, using their reality-warping technology. Human ships would simply cease to exist when hit by quantum disruptors. All ships, prepare for planetary bombardment, Kritok commanded. Destroy the alien installations first, then target Earth's major cities. Make this a lesson the galaxy will not forget. The first surprise came when the human fleet didn't advance to meet them. Instead, they seemed to be retreating toward Jupiter. Admiral Kritok smiled. These primitive humans were already running away. Follow them, he ordered. Finish this quickly. The Battle of Sol began when the Shrek fleet reached Jupiter's orbit. Kritok fired his quantum disruptors at the largest human ship, expecting it to simply vanish. Instead, his weapons passed right through the target, without causing any damage. What? Kritok shouted. Fire again. But now the human ships were moving in ways that violated physics. They phased through his battle formations like ghosts, firing weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Shrek's ships began exploding in brilliant flashes as their own reality-warping technology was turned against them. Captain Mitchell piloted the Unity through the enemy formation, her ship's crystal hull absorbing energy weapon fire and redirecting. It had other targets. This is Unity to all ships, she broadcast. Execute Pattern 7. Across the battlefield, human fighters began working in perfect coordination with massive Kethfer constructs. The crystal beings had grown ship-sized extensions of themselves, creating living weapons platforms that could adapt to any attack in real time. Tony Rodriguez, now commanding his own hybrid cruiser, watched his shields absorb a direct hit from a Shrek battleship's main gun. The energy coursed through the crystal matrix and emerged as a focused beam that cut the enemy ship in half. These weapons, he said in amazement. They're learning from every attack. The turning point came when Zila, now 13 and working as a communications coordinator, managed to establish contact with the Shrek fleet's computer systems. Her natural ability to interface with electronic devices had been refined over months of working with human technology. I can see their battle plans, she reported to Admiral Kane. They're going to try to ram our stations with their damaged ships. Kane immediately broadcast new orders to his fleet. The hybrid ships moved to intercept, but the Shrek Admiral had one final card to play. His flagship was equipped with a planet-killer weapon, powerful enough to crack Jupiter's moons. If I cannot have victory, Admiral Kritok shouted, I will have revenge. The weapon fired, its beam heading straight for New Velos, the largest Kethfer city. 10,000 families lived there, including many of the human children who had befriended the refugees. But Zekai was ready. The old commander had positioned himself directly in the weapon's path. His ship's crystal hull expanded into a massive shield. The planet-killer beam struck him full force. For a moment, it looked like Zekai would be destroyed. Then the energy began flowing through his ship's crystal matrix, building and focusing until it emerged as a pulse of pure force that disabled every remaining Shrek vessel. The battle was over in less than 4 hours. The mighty Shrek fleet was defeated, their ships drifting powerless in Jupiter's gravity well. Admiral Kritok sat in his darkened bridge, unable to believe what had happened. A communication request came from the human flagship. When Kritok accepted it, he expected to hear terms for his surrender. Instead, he saw Dr. Lisa Carter in a medical uniform. Admiral Kritok. This is Dr. Carter of the Human Medical Corps. We're detecting life support failures on several of your ships. We're prepared to offer medical assistance to your wounded. Kritok stared at the screen. You would help us after we came to destroy you. That's what we do, Lisa said. Simply, we help people who need help. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kritok felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. These humans and their alien friends had defeated him completely, and now they were offering to save his wounded soldiers. Why? He asked quietly. Dr. Carter smiled. Because someone once told us that friendship isn't about what you can get. It's about what you can give. As human and Kethver medical teams worked to save Shrek lives, news of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The impossible had happened. Earth's small fleet had defeated the galaxy's most powerful military force through tactics and technology no one had ever seen before. But more importantly, they had shown mercy to their enemies. In a galaxy where victory usually meant complete destruction of the defeated, humanity's offer of medical aid to the Shrek wounded sent shock waves through every government and military command. On Earth, President Stewart addressed the world with quiet pride. Today we proved that doing the right thing doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong, and we're just getting started. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their refusal to let anyone suffer alone, even their enemies. 5 years after the Battle of Seoul, Dr. Rachel Torres stood in the observation deck of Freedom Station, watching the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species had come to this neutral space station orbiting Earth's moon to witness the signing of a new treaty. The Free Systems Alliance had grown beyond anyone's dreams. What started as humanity offering shelter to the Kethver had become a movement that changed the galaxy forever. "Are you nervous?" asked Zila, who now served as the Alliance's youngest translator. The Kethver teenager had grown into a brilliant young woman, her crystal body flickering with patterns that Rachel had learned meant excitement mixed with hope. "A little," Rachel admitted. 5 years ago, we were just trying to help refugees. Now we're reshaping galactic politics." The first species to join after the battle had been the Yulan refugees, nomads whose homeworld had been strip-mined by Concord corporations. Captain Alina Vasquez, the same woman who had warned Earth about the Shrek attack, had found them drifting in broken ships near the galactic rim. Their situation was just like yours was, Alina had told Commander Z during the rescue mission. Cast out with nowhere to go, the Yulan brought something precious to the Alliance. Detailed knowledge of trade routes and hidden resources that the big galactic powers had overlooked. Within months, Alliance ships were establishing new colonies on worlds the Concord had considered worthless. Next came the ethereal drifters, energy beings who had been denied citizenship in the Concord because they didn't have physical bodies. Dr. Amy Foster, now Earth's head of xenolinguistics, had spent weeks learning to communicate with beings made of pure thought. "They're not just energy," Amy explained to the Alliance Council. "They're living libraries. Each drifter contains thousands of years of accumulated knowledge." The drifters' gift to the Alliance was information itself. They had observed galactic civilization for millennia, recording everything but never being allowed to participate. Now, for the first time, they had a voice in galactic affairs. Each new species brought unique abilities and perspectives. The Chorus, a collective intelligence from the galactic south, shared their ability to coordinate massive construction projects by linking minds together. The Stonewalkers, silicon-based lifeforms, could survive in environments that would kill any organic being. But the most important additions weren't the powerful species. They were the small ones, the forgotten ones, the survivors of worlds that bigger civilizations had used up and abandoned. General Patricia Stone, now commanding the Alliance Defense Fleet, often said that their greatest strength wasn't technology or numbers. "It's that we all remember what it feels like to be helpless," she explained to new recruits. "So we make sure nobody else has to feel that way." The Galactic Concord had tried to stop the Alliance's growth through economic pressure and diplomatic threats. But every harsh action they took just drove more species into the Alliance's arms. The breaking point came when the Concord tried to blockade Alliance trade routes. Admiral Rex Kane, commanding the hybrid fleet that had grown out of the Battle of Seoul, simply offered safe passage to any ship that needed it. "We don't ask what government you serve," Kane announced on open galactic channels. "We don't care what species you are. If you need help, we'll provide it." Within 6 months, most of the galaxy's merchant ships were flying under Alliance protection. The economic blockade collapsed, and several Concord member worlds quietly began negotiating their own separate trade deals with Alliance colonies. President Stewart, now serving his second term, had watched the transformation with amazement. 5 years ago, we were a single world afraid of making enemies. Now we're showing the galaxy a better way to live. The signing ceremony began with a speech from Elder Zakai, who had become something like the Alliance's spiritual leader. The old Kethver had survived the Battle of Sol, but the effort of channeling the planet-killer weapon had aged him greatly. His crystal body was now more translucent, shot through with veins of pure light. "My friends," Zakai said, his voice carrying to every corner of the station. 5 years ago, we were the outcasts. The galaxy had judged us unworthy of life itself. We expected nothing but the cold embrace of space. He gestured toward the human delegation. Instead, we found something we had forgotten existed: compassion, courage, the willingness to stand up for strangers simply because it was right. The ceremony continued as representatives from each Alliance species signed the new charter. The document established principles that had never been tried on a galactic scale: mutual aid over competition, cooperation over conquest, inclusion over exclusion. But the real significance wasn't in the words. It was in the children. Megan Phillips, now 17 and serving as Earth's youth ambassador, stood with a group that would have been impossible 5 years earlier. Human and Kethver teenagers talked and laughed with young drifters appearing as glowing spheres of light. Yulin, nomads, and even a few juvenile stonewalkers who communicated by changing the patterns on their rocky skin. These children had grown up together, learned together, played together. They didn't see aliens when they looked at each other. They saw friends. "This is the future," Dr. Kevin Ross whispered to Rachel as they watched the young beings interact. "This is what we really accomplished. Not the politics or the military victories. This." The ceremony's most emotional moment came when little Zila, now 18, but still the bridge between human and Kethver cultures, read a message from the children of New Velos, the crystal city that had nearly been destroyed in the battle. "To the beings of the galaxy," she read, "we are the first generation to grow up free from the fear of being different. Our parents were enemies who became friends. Our worlds were distant strangers who became family. We promise to build a galaxy where no one is cast out, where everyone has a place, where the stars belong to all of us." As the ceremony ended, Rachel found herself thinking about Captain Jake Murphy, who had died 2 years earlier in a transport accident while delivering medical supplies to a plague-stricken world. His last words, recorded in the ship's log, had become the Alliance's unofficial motto: "The most important choice isn't the safe one, it's the right one." The signing was broadcast across the galaxy, carried by quantum relay to every inhabited world. In the galactic Concord chambers, officials watched in stony silence as species after species announced their intention to join the Free Systems Alliance. But not all the reactions were hostile. On dozens of worlds, ordinary beings watched the ceremony and saw something they had never imagined possible: a government that actually seemed to care about everyone, not just the powerful and wealthy. The revolution wasn't violent. It was something much more dangerous to the old order. It was hopeful. 6 months later, Rachel stood in the same observation deck, but now she was watching something even more remarkable. The first joint colony ship was launching from Earth orbit, heading for a world in the galactic core, where all Alliance species would work together to build something new. "New Harmony," she said, reading the colony ship's name painted on its hull. "Think it will work." Zila, now studying to become a diplomat, smiled in the way only Kethver could, her entire body glowing with joy. "Human friend Rachel, 5 years ago you saved my people from extinction. You taught the galaxy that being different doesn't make you dangerous. You proved that helping strangers makes you stronger, not weaker." She pointed at the colony ship, where human and alien families could be seen through the observation windows, all heading out to build a new world together. If that can work, Zila continued, anything can work. As the ship engaged, its faster than light drives, and disappeared into the stars. Rachel thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with one simple decision, to help people who needed help, regardless of what anyone else thought. Now, that decision was changing the galaxy. The old commander, Zekai, standing nearby with his crystalline body, growing more translucent, each day, spoke the words that would be remembered long after all of them were gone. We came to your species as exiles, expecting nothing but an honorable death among strangers. Instead, you gave us something we had forgotten could exist, a home not defined by soil or star, but by those who choose to stand together. Today, we are no longer Kethfer and human, but something new, citizens of hope itself. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Rachel thought, as she watched more ships launch toward distant stars, was exactly the point.